This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
In 2014, alone and retching on the floor with food poisoning in a hut in the jungles of Bali, Derek Loudermilk thought it might be the end. In a single year, he lost his house to a freak flood, suffered a traumatic brain injury, got divorced, and dropped out of his PhD program. All the scripts running in his life had dissolved. Derek had become a man with no identity. But at that moment, he realized his future was full of infinite possibility. He set about building a new lifestyle in business around adventure, connection, meaning, and possibility. Valeria interviews Derek Loudermilk, the author of Activate Your Life book series, Transformational Exercises from Coaches Around the World, Volume 1, 2, and 3, and also Superconductors, Revolutionize Your Career and Make Big Things Happen. Derek has coached global influencers, leading scientists, cutting-edge entrepreneurs, billionaires, world record athletes, thought leaders, New York Times bestselling authors, and high achievers around the world for more than 15 years. Derek Loudermilk is a former pro cyclist and extreme microbiologist turned professional adventurer, author, and lifestyle entrepreneur. His podcast, The Derek Loudermilk Show, brings people to a high-level understanding of cutting-edge topics in science, spirituality, adventure, and human potential. Derek hosted the top-rated Art of Adventure podcast for 7 years. Derek Loudermilk is the creator of the LEAP, LEAP system for quantum entrepreneurs. His business coaching process incorporates the Thought Leaders MBA, the Adventure Mindset, the Energy Experience, and Peak Performance Mastery. As an international speaker and trainer, Derek regularly presents on topics such as human potential, skill mastery, adventure, metaphysics, charisma, and confidence. Derek has visited over 40 countries in all of the 50 U.S. states. He has been location independent for 6 years and travels the world with his wife and 2 young children. They have lived in 6 different countries as a family. As the founder of Adventure Quest, Derek leads entrepreneurs and thought leaders in transformative adventure experiences around the world. Meet Derek at derekloudermilk.com. Here's the interview with Derek Loudermilk.
In your own words, who is Derek Loudermilk?
Hi, Valeria. Thanks. I'm an adventurer. I call myself an adventurer when people ask me at parties or networking events, what do you do? I say I'm a professional adventurer. Sometimes I say I'm an author, kind of depending on what I think the person would find interesting, just so we can have an interesting conversation. Sometimes I say I'm a farmer. So really, I'm just picking whatever is going to lead to more interesting conversations.
For yourself, if you were introducing yourself to you, what would you say?
I would probably start with the questions first and then find the things that I have in common. I always like to find a few things that, say I'm meeting somebody new, that we can say, oh, we are like each other, and then sort of build from there.
That would be a very, let's say, different experience if we ask that question to ourselves, right? Who am I? That's a powerful question to ask, that I keep doing it almost every day, looking into my eyes in the mirror. Who are you? And one day I did ask that question, probably was the most sincere, moment. Let's say I was looking for clarity at that point, and the answer was the mind said to itself, there's no you, there's just here, and here is everywhere. I mean, that was something because I was not looking for that answer really. And yeah, that stayed with me to this moment.
I've done some gazing into my own eyes in the mirror, something similar. And it is really to me, very comforting because I feel like there's no question. I expect that some people would be very confused to look in the mirror, or it could be very confronting. And to me, it feels like I've known myself for a long time. So it's can be very comforting, I think, for me to look in the mirror.
How do you define success these days? What is to be successful to you?
Honestly, that feels a little bit like something I would have done in the past. I'm not really measuring success in a way, but every morning I do a sort of a gratitude journaling practice, and I take some time to review the day before and how I showed up the previous day. And success to me is often a collection of new experiences and understanding that I optimized, made the most of the present. So if I was with my kids, for example, if I was really there with them when we were splashing in the puddle, or if I was writing something creatively, that I was not thinking about anything else, that I was just there in the moment. So it seems a lot of things work out well for me when I can just be with each thing in turn.
We call it being present to what is present, like being in the moment. Would that be it, Derek?
Yeah, absolutely. And at the same time, I'm a strategic thinker. I'm a business coach, but I've also been an avid strategy game player, and so I don't want to give the impression that I'm just living moment to moment, because I do find a lot of joy in the grand plans, the strategic visioning, and so many times you come up with a strategy and the world gives you some totally different, roll of the dice.
You mean sometimes we can get very much caught up into the expectations of what we are planning, right? And that doesn't seem to be a happy place to be, I would say, with expectations, when we just, we get so excited about something and then we get so disappointed when they don't come true. So I wonder what the balance is when it comes to that.
Well, yeah, yesterday I was disappointed because there was a contest that I expected to win, but I did not win. I was playing a little game with, can I manifest winning this contest? And I was fairly convinced that I would win, but I didn't. So the whole time, wondering what is it going to feel like when I do win? What am I going to do now that I've won? All those things were fundamentally irrelevant, and they were an interesting experience in and of themselves.
The experience itself of expectation or being excited about the future, they almost gain a life of their own. They exist per se already, independently of the result. That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, so it's possible that, for example, the going through the process of entering to win, it was a mansion in the mountains, like a lodge, or you could take a cash prize, and the process of just going down that path. Okay, well, if we won, would we move? Would we move to this house, like from our city out to the mountains? Would we do that? And like, what would our life look like if we, pulled our kids out of school and went to live in this mansion in the mountains? Has its own, right? It starts a line of thinking. It kicks off a line of inquiry that could end up changing the direction of our family. So perhaps it still is doing what it's supposed to do, whether or not we won the house or not.
That's fascinating. So there is a change in perspective within the realm of the mind. Something's changing just by navigating that reality that we are creating for ourselves in this moment. That makes sense, right? I mean, so many shifts have happened because of that. It's almost like a contemplation of what is present. It could be an expectation or anything. So that makes sense, Derek. I never heard it that way. What is your understanding of happiness?
Well, your questions they're tricky.
Yeah, right.
Also something, happiness and success. Like I guess I don't really spend a lot of time thinking about them, but what's coming up for me is how in relationship to other people I'm sort of learning about how I feel. So like if I'm spending time with a new friend and I'm like, wow, I'm feeling a particular type of happiness. I'm feeling sort of an optimistic, what kind of adventures are we going to have type of happiness. And there's totally different there's all these flavors of it. So it's influenced by the relationship between, me and another person or my pets or whatever it might be that flavors that type of happiness.
How did you become an adventurer? How did that passion kind of came to be?
I was born an adventurer, but I gave that job title to myself when I was a PhD student, and I ended up dropping out of my PhD program to travel the world 9 years ago. And so I said, okay, someone in a PhD, they become an expert in their field. And so I was kind of taking that model, but instead of being an expert in microbiology, which is what I was studying, I said, I'm going to be the world's expert on adventure. So not only did I surround myself with adventurers, but I, became an adventurer and read every great adventure story and, travel the world and put myself in the wildest situations that I could find.
That's what an adventure is. That's how you would describe the idea of adventure. Just a wild, unexpected experience.
Well, if there's sort of a definition that we could work with about adventure. If you look in the dictionary, it says an interesting or remarkable experience.
Yeah.
So there's got to be some aspect of novelty. There's sort of a challenge or stepping up to the edge of the comfort zone. So an element of risk in a way, whether it's physical, real risk or just a perception of risk. There's got to be an element of, again, with the definition, remarkability. So there's a story there. If you remark about something, you're telling a story about it. So it has to be something that has a story character, an element of you want to tell it as a story. And then the final aspect I would say is that it changes the person who goes through the adventure. They're different at the end than when they started. So there's an element of personal evolution through adventure.
Yeah, that all makes a lot of sense to me. And I wonder if we can do that without leaving our houses. Through meditation or self-inquiry. That's an experience that not an everyday experience, but I often have those moments it's almost like a rediscovery of who I am, of what's happening here in the human body. So I wonder if I can call that an adventure. It really feels like it.
Yeah, when we were about to have our first child, I was actually feeling a little worried that I would have less time, to go out and travel and do physical challenges. And just at that time, a woman emailed me out of the blue and she said, my spirit guides told me to hire you as a business coach. And I was like, well, that's amazing. Good job, spirit guides, doing my marketing for me. But she said, let me give you a session so that I can show you a bit about what I do. And one of the things that came up in the session was that I should learn to do lucid dreaming, because she said that's going to be a great avenue for adventure for you, and you won't have to actually leave your house. to be able to do that. And that's when I started my dreaming practice and started learning how to lucid dream and keeping track of all the dream symbols and archetypes and stories and all that stuff.
The last warm-up question for you, Derek, is spirituality. How do you view this topic or this idea of spirituality? What is to be spiritual to you?
Well, I have, again, this training as a scientist. And when I started having what a lot of people call spiritual experiences, I started, where I was coming from was, okay, if these are happening, there's fundamentally an explanation. The universe, the laws of the universe must be arranged in such a way that this is possible. Otherwise, I wouldn't be having them. So I started to look into the nature of consciousness and the dimensions and quantum physics and all these different aspects. And so really, spirituality is sort of a placeholder term for Earth people. But if you come at it from a higher perspective, spirituality is really just the sort of the laws of the universe working.
The laws of the universe. And what are some of these laws?
Well, I would say perhaps a couple important ones, a couple frames to look at things through would, one, be that the material world that we experience here on Earth is a byproduct of consciousness. And that can be explained in many different ways, spiritually or scientifically. And another important sort of overarching theme that I might have your audience consider, is the phrase "all is self," and that is if we are all fractals of the infinite consciousness of the universe, then at the core we are all the original self, which again in scientific terms. Right, we believe that we may be separate people because I have this identity and you have a different identity that you're going with, but we're just sort of this field of atoms, which fundamentally is a field of electromagnetism, which gives rise to this. So that's one of the things that, like, a lot of people are experiencing psychedelics, mushrooms, ayahuasca type of thing, and it's a very common experience. You can look down at your body and see that there's the atoms of air that are touching your body. They're right there. It's hard to tell where your body ends and the rest of the world begins. It's just one of the very simple things that people start to realize, like, oh, wow, this whole soup is together rather than just, me as this separate entity.
Could you elaborate a bit more about the consequences of getting to have this knowledge? How would we live moment by moment, like our daily lives? That must change a lot, right, Derek, when we get to have this knowledge?
Well, I would say one of the things that changed for me was I don't fear dying, and sort of I understand energy is neither created nor destroyed. So essentially we're immortal, which means you don't have to worry about anything.
So true. Oh my God, that's liberating, isn't it? It feels very much. Maybe that's why you probably have heard the word, obviously, enlightenment. And it's all about liberation, knowing the truth, which has to do with exactly what you just said. Everything's connected. There's just one source for everything that we see and perceive. That might be a great word to say, liberation, and liberation from suffering too, right? Because a lot of our suffering and pain, it comes from this attachment to the physical body, as if it was the end, was everything and the end.
And I guess I also don't want to come across as an enlightened person, because
it sounds like it.
Even though intellectually I know I don't have to worry, sometimes I just fall into that.
Right.
As a matter of going through my day.
And I think that's what it is too. Because if consciousness is both the seen and the unseen, then the experience of consciousness is everything. It's now worrying because now you know the truth, and worrying because sometimes we forget the truth. So that would make sense, that enlightenment would be just an idea, but in truth, everything is consciousness, and everything we do and how we do it. There's no rules, really. That's how the message comes to me, really. So I love that you said that. I would love to go back to the topic of lucid dreaming, because that's the main topic of our conversation today. Applied metaphysics, how to grow your business using the laws of the universe. So you have these techniques, and I have in front of me 8 of them. So I would love to hear more about lucid dreaming. I have done that before, I remember. I practiced lucid dreams about 10 years ago. And that was a very interesting experience. But I don't know how much. I think I was not ready, really, to interpret those experiences. But I would love to hear more about it, Derek.
Well, what I like to do, and I like you have the word quest in your podcast, and I often operate, part of an adventurer is having quests. And so one of the quests that I'm in the middle of is to, I think the number is going to be 100, but I'm about 57 different metaphysical techniques into my quest. And, these, like for lucid dreaming or manifesting or different types of meditation, whatever it might be, healing techniques that I've experimented with, I'm always looking for ways to apply them to something that we're trying to do in our lives. And I coach a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of healers, spiritual teachers who have access to, a lot of wisdom, but sometimes we're not always applying. So how can we apply lucid dreaming? How can we apply these different modalities to actually, grow a business or make an organization thrive here in the 3D? And so, dreaming is so fantastic because a lot of people have this complaint of, I don't have enough time, or I always feel so busy, or I wish there were just more hours in the day, then I could be more productive, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, dreaming, if you go to work in your dreams, then all of a sudden you add not just an extra 8 hours to your workday, but sort of almost an unlimited amount, because when you can access your own subconscious mind, when you can access the collective unconscious or collective subconscious, then you can do things like you can break through creative challenges, which people have known about for a long time, but you could find customers, you can find business partners, you can get all kinds of guidance from your dream time. If you have a big decision, you can understand what's the best outcome, depending on which path I'm going to take. So the real key here is that you set a clear intention each night as you go to bed. And the first level would be, I'm going to remember, I'm going to get useful information that I remember. And then, you have a dream journal next to your bed that you can write down as soon as you wake up. Because a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't dream, or I don't remember my dreams." You do have to capture them before they drift away. And so, having that intention sort of being the first layer, and then your second layer would be the question of what you want to happen, what type of information, or is there a task that you want done? You're free to send your sort of dreaming double to go do things for you during dream time. So each night is something to look forward to, because you can get so much done, or you can have an adventure, or you can, work on your business if you didn't finish during the day.
I remember using a script 10 years ago. I think I had something that I read before I went to bed. It was a general script. I think I didn't set any intentions. That's the key, it seems to me. So it's important to set an intention. What is the question, right? That sounds really good. I'm going to try that, because I'm going to have my pad close to my bed, and then when I wake up, I'll try to remember. That sounds really good, and I'll let you know, Derek. Later
Okay,
on.
all right.
The other one is one of the 8 techniques I see here. I know that there are a lot more that you have experienced, but you mentioned crystal grids. That sounds very interesting to me, because I heard that crystals are the only perfect minerals on Earth in the sense of harmony, the imperfect harmony. Have you heard about this before?
Well, if you look into the molecular structure of a crystal, right, they're arranged in these sort of perfect patterns, layer upon layer of hexagonal shapes or square shapes or diamond sort of frameworks, right? And the whole thing grows. It's a type of life form in a sense. They start, from a very small seed, and they sort of grow, and they have information baked into the way that they grow, just like people. But yeah, they really do sort of lock in an underlying frequency into their physical structure. And that's why different crystals, different minerals have different metaphysical properties. They sort of flavor the vibration differently sometimes it's even based on the impurities, right? You could have a pure quartz, but the impurities make it amethyst, which is like putting a lens, a colored filter over the sort of initial framework of crystal. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk to me about the crystal grids. How do we make them, create them?
So do you use any crystals, or do you like to use them as spiritual tools at all, or anything like that?
I used to, but not anymore. I don't think I have them around anymore. I used to, and then I lost, let's say, touch with crystals. I don't know why exactly, but I don't. Not at the moment. No.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So I recommend starting with quartz, which is one of the most common crystals. You can find one for $1 somewhere. And one thing about quartz is there's an intimate relationship between quartz and water and human consciousness. Information can be, and this is all validated with decades of laboratory measurements. You can transfer a thought into a crystal, and then you can transfer that from a crystal into water, and then from water into, let's say, even a projector or something like that onto a screen. And so the influence of our conscious intention awareness to work with our crystals is very easy, and it can be quite profound. And so a lot of people just use individual crystals as healing tools. You might put them on your body, or wear them, or carry them in your pocket, or whatever you might do. The difference with a grid or an array is that you can use multiple crystals in relationship to each other. And this is particularly useful for entrepreneurs. Let's say you're launching a book or a podcast, or you just created a retreat that you want to fill. The retreat example is a good one. Let's say you want 10 people on the retreat, and you're going to have an assistant helping you with the retreat, and it's going to be in a specific location. It's going to be in Belize, and it's going to be adventure and yoga and meditation, or something like that. Okay. So we've got the flavors of the retreat, and we've got who we want, and maybe there's some profitability intentions that you have for it. You can represent each aspect of this launch with its own individual crystal, each part of the intention, and basically you end up what used to be, let's call it it was just an idea. It was something in your mind that you were planning, but eventually it has to become a physical reality. It has to become concrete enough that people are actually there in the flesh doing the retreat. They've paid and flown there, and they're meditating on their mat. So part of the process of making this idea more and more dense until it's real is what I see as grids sort of start to tether into physical reality this thing that before was only in the thought field. And so you can you can just put your crystals out in relationship to each other. It doesn't have to be in any particular pattern, or you can use any crystals you want. Some of them, right? Like if you want to use pyrite for prosperity, and you want to use quartz for all the different people, and you want to use lapis for clear communication, or whatever it might be. You can look up what each crystal is supposed to mean, but you still, when you're building it, it's kind of like making art in a way. You're still just relying on your own creative inspiration to build this. and then you leave it up as long as you need. Leave it on your countertop as for days or months or however long until you actually launch your retreat. And each day you can spend some time with the grid, reaffirming your intention for the outcome. And it's sort of an intermediary step between dreaming it and having the actual experience of it.
So that's fascinating how we can use objects to manifest or to place the intention, the thought. It's so amazing to see that, how we can connect the consciousness that's here to the consciousness that's there and kind of amplify. Is that what happens, Derek? Amplifies the power, per se.
Yeah, I see it as it's almost paving the way for that future reality to exist by setting the vibration in play, in our current time, right? Because the event's going to happen in the future, but let's bring it into this current reality, this present reality.
As you said before, about strategies, planning, and then they become a reality in themselves. Almost at this moment becomes a reality that we want to see in the future. And even if it doesn't happen, it already happened in a way. So that sounds interesting to me. I mean, it's fascinating that we don't have to wait to be happy. That has been said before, as you know. Not a good idea to wait to be happy. So this really, really works for me. Another one that you mentioned, another technique, metaphysics technique, is the unified field manifestation. I don't know what this is.
Well, it's a technique that I created. I'm the inventor of this particular technique. And in the world of healing, spiritual healing, there's a lot of studies shown that these group healings have high effectiveness. And in particular, when, let's say, 8 people are all intending to cure the cancer or the, broken ankle or whatever of a single person, right? That's the receiver. And they come and they say, I want to be healed. And everyone sort of focuses together on that healing. And they noticed that the people sending the healing to the receiver also experienced healing because of the law of reciprocity, the cause and effect. So there's kind of a rebound effect. And basically, I took the same concept and just applied it to business. Again, because the people that I work with are creating products, offerings, services that that is in alignment with their mission. Okay, let's say you believe that, going back to our retreat example, you believe that's the next most important thing you should be doing for your mission, is bringing people an experience in this way. And so what we would do is, if we all agree that this is actually important to all of us, like we see that you doing this retreat can change the world, right? This is, maybe you're doing a men's retreat to liberate them from the trauma that they've carried for a long time, whatever it might be, right? And you're like, wow, I actually want for that to happen. And so everyone gets on board with whatever it might be. So it could be a retreat, or it could be you want to get on a podcast for the first time because you need to start spreading your message. Well, so, okay, great. We're all going to intend for you to get on to a podcast for the first time. So we spend some time getting very clear on not just why you want this to happen, but what's it going to do for your life, your purpose once it happens, and what does it feel like? What does it look like? And we start to explore the tangible outcomes, understanding what it's going to be like once it happens, so that we get a good sense for how to send the intention. So once we get all together clear on what we're going to be sending, and you can think of it like you're sending it as a gift, or you're radiating out the intention from your heart to the receiver. I want from a pure heart-based place, I want you to host this retreat or go on this podcast. Then we spend 10, 15 minutes actually just sending and sort of collectively projecting this to the receiver. And this is the really cool part, because everyone that's experienced this feels that when we start, it's like jumping into a river together, a river of consciousness, because even if you're doing it over Zoom, you can experience being together with everyone in the same place in a different way. And you start to, you can see the other people there on on the etheric plane, for example, but you can see what they're wearing, you can see how they're acting. And so what happens is not only are we sending this intention to manifest this future reality, but often we're getting information back. We're getting insights about how it's supposed to happen, or what would lead to this being completed successfully, or whatever it might be. So there's an element of it kind of gives people psychic abilities in a way.
That sounds a bit similar in a way to the principles in the law of attraction. But I think that the law of attraction is more, I think can be used also with groups, but it's more an individual kind of adventure. Do you see some similarities, Derek?
Oh, yeah, it's the same thing, but most people are, it's like instead of applying it individually, it harnesses the power of a collective. And so not only, we've had 100% success rate with the main intention coming true, which is unbelievable, right? Anything that has 100% success rate in business is gold. But we also harness the rebound effect, which means that as you give your intention for someone else's success, you also experience an acceleration of your own goals in a way. And so it's really fantastic to do. We do this in my mastermind that I run for spiritual entrepreneurs, and it brings people together. It helps everyone sort of understand exactly what we're all trying to do. And then, we can contribute in so many better ways. And it's really fantastic.
It sounds beautiful to me, the community piece that we are doing we're helping others and ourselves at the same time. That's one of the most beautiful things I can think of, experiences in the human body. This is my favorite one now, out of the top five, the unified field manifestation. I love that. So the other two are hypnosis and human designs. I would love to hear more about them. Hypnosis, I have an idea. And human designs, I don't know much about it.
Well, yeah, I can just touch on those fairly quickly. Hypnosis is perhaps the easiest tool for shifting your identity. And when you're trying to do something in business, it's much easier to work from the identity level. So if you're having trouble as a salesperson, or if you're having trouble scaling, or if you want to hit 7 figures for the first time, or whatever it might be, and you're trying all the things, but it's not working, it's probably because your identity, and therefore your actions and habits, etc., aren't matching with what a successful CEO identity is. And so it's much easier than trying to do a bunch of things, just following a checklist or following a business plan or whatever, because look at people that win the lottery, right? They're often broke within a couple of years. It's because their identity never changed. They got a bunch of money and then it just went away. So you have to work from the identity level and pick the identity that's going to suit your objectives. And then there's different ways you can create experiences for yourself, like through adventure, that change your identity, or you can even access it through hypnosis. And you can just do a little daily self-hypnosis and just go into your subconscious and sort of start tinkering, start shifting your own identity from your subconscious.
That is fantastic. I have an idea about the power of hypnosis. And human design, Derek, how does it work?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say I'm an expert. There's many levels to it, but people fall under sort of 5 main types, and it's based on sort of an energetic blueprint when you're born. So you can go and anybody can get their human design chart for free. There's various places, but you just put in your birth date, time, location, that type of thing. It's astrologically, so it's the field of the solar system as you were born, right, you sort of pick up an energetic blueprint as you're born, which flavors your life. And, if we have specific intentions for what we're going to experience, then, we're largely choosing this flavor. But it can help in business, it can help in marketing, or how you are as a leader, how you are with your customers, if you understand your design. Because I would say most traditional Western business philosophy is sort of like you're going to make it happen, you're going to hustle, you're going to use your force of will to create a business. And that works for a percentage of the population. Maybe 20% of the people do well in that. But if that's not you, if that's not your design, you're going to burn yourself out and be frustrated and wonder, I'm trying to copy this successful entrepreneur and it doesn't feel good for me. So learning a little bit about, there's generators and projectors and reflectors and manifestors. Just understanding what your type is and can help inform you. Am I going to be doing the hustle type of business where I'm telling people, here's what we need to do and we're going to do it? Or am I going to be just sort of living my life and waiting for people to draw me into their projects and contribute in that way? Or am I going to have this sort of picking and choosing between what's exciting for me in the moment? And that just makes things a lot less energetically costly for entrepreneurs.
It sounds very interesting. I think my husband would like this one or would benefit from it. I'm thinking here as you speak, I'm like, wait a minute, that's him. He needs to know more about his blueprint. So we're almost at the end. I do have a question for you about all these techniques. So the top 5, crystal grids, lucid dreaming, the unified field manifestation, hypnosis, human designs, and then the 3 extra that we didn't talk about, Ho'oponopono and the EFT tapping, and then breath work. So a quick question about all these techniques. Which one has been the most effective one for you? Not for other people. I know we're all different, but for you.
Well, maybe I'll say to optimize any technique you're using, the meta skill would be your awareness and understanding how to direct your attention and how to quiet your thoughts and sort of, right? So we said the intention with the grid, the intention with the lucid dreaming, whatever it might be. And so really learning how to master your awareness can benefit all the other techniques. So that's sort of a fundamental layer there.
We did talk off record about Activate Your Life. You have a series of books, 3 of them published. The other one is called Superconductors. You mentioned that you wanted to talk briefly about the Activate Your Life book series.
Yeah, Superconductors I wrote as the sole author, and Activate Your Life is a collaboration. We've put 3 volumes out now, over 100 co-authors, and the series. The objective is to bring the best coaching exercises, the best metaphysical and healing exercises from all the amazing practitioners that I know and sort of get them out into the world. And so each one is a collection of exercises that you can do on your own. You can do at home. Or if you are a coach or a healer, you can learn the exercises from the book for your own practice. So there's kind of 2 different audiences for the book. One is the professional healer or coach, and the other is just somebody that wants access to some of the world's best coaches in order to coach themselves.
What do you love most about being in a human body or the human body?
Personally, I love to push myself physically. I've done a lot of sports as a professional cyclist. And so I really enjoy the feeling of being strong, which allows me to go places, underwater or flying through the air or going fast through the woods. And so, yeah, I enjoy taking care of the body so that it can, give me wonderful experiences.
And what is another word for freedom?
Another word for freedom is a bunch of words just flashed through my head, but I just sort of rejected them all. But this one, I'm not sure why. Solitude is another word for freedom. And what I'm imagining is a specific experience when I was doing a vision quest by myself up in the mountains in Montana, and fasting, essentially, camping out in the high country for many days. And there was the freedom was in, I had nowhere to be, nothing to do. I didn't even have to think about anything in particular. And so there was a freedom in just being with no strings attached.
Thank you so much, Derek. My last question is, what 3 experiences you wish everyone to have before they lose the body, before they die?
Honestly, I would love for everyone to get the chance to become a parent. That's been really meaningful for me. Such a key part of the human experience. I would love for everyone to have an exotic love affair, maybe with over a short time window that they never would have expected. Let's say like 4 days in an exotic location with someone exotic. And lastly, that they build something with their own hands, a physical thing that lasts, whether it's a house or a piece of art or, whatever it might be, something that they can pass by and know that they built it from nothing.
Thank you so much again for your wisdom, your presence, the wisdom you share, the timeless wisdom you share, and everything else in between. Thank you so much for being you, Derek.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Valeria.
And before we say goodbye today, where can we find more information about you, your books, products, services, and future projects?
Yes, DerekLoudermilk.com and Derek Loudermilk on all the socials. And I have a show. It's called The Derek Loudermilk Show. And we look at the intersection of science and spirituality and adventure and business.
That sounds wonderful. I actually have to go back to your website and listen to some of them. I've seen them. I've seen the posts.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again, Derek, and we'll talk soon. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Derek Loudermilk and his work, please visit DerekLoudermilk.com.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.